All right, so tonight we are talking about robot proofing our assignments. And many of you will be, I don't know, surprised to find that your assignments probably are not robot proof. And I discovered that. And so after a couple of months of Chat GPT being out, I decided to sign up and see how my assignments fared. So you can see here that my writing assignments in my freshman composition course are worth 45% of their overall grade. So this makes up the bulk of the work that they do in the class. And so I put in each of my assignments. The first two, which are weighted less than the last three, well, the last two, but the final. But my first two essay assignments and my last essay assignments are already robot proof. They pass with flying colors. But the two in the middle were a little problematic. Essay 2 failed dramatically. I think I almost cried because I like this assignment. So first, let me show you what these two assignments are that are robot proof. The first one is just an essay where students are asked to write about themselves. I want them to tell me about their reading and writing history. Do they like it? Where they learn to read and write? Were they successful with it? And so students find this essay not very intimidating. So many of them aren't going to try to cheat on an assignment like this. Usually they just roll up their sleeves and start writing about their writing and reading history. I do ask a lot of questions, but I tell them you don't have to answer all the questions, but you can use the questions that are there as a guide. And I don't really feel like any of these essays that I get are cheating or robot essays. Now let me show you another one. My favorite essay is the racial identity essay, and it's the first major essay for major points. And basically what I'm wanting students to do in this essay is to, again, write about themselves. But this time they're writing an illustration essay where they're writing about their own racial identity. So the question they're answering is, what is your racial identity or identities, and do you have explicit biases? And so to answer this question, you will write a 700-word illustration essay. And so again, this one is really a personal narrative essay, and it's got to be about them. And I learn a little bit about them by the time we get to this essay, so it's really difficult for them to pluck that into a robot machine and see what comes out. So I was curious, so I did just that. So let's go ahead and highlight the terms of the assignment and paste it somewhere. All right, so I'm going to post it in, and here we go. It's thinking. Woo! I think I stumped the robot. So it tells me that it is an AI language model created by OpenAI, and it starts writing about it as if it were writing about itself. And so it's definitely not a essay that students could submit for that assignment. So that would be a robot-proof assignment. Now, when I go back to my third essay, this is where I was really sad. So with essay 2, one of the things that I want for students to do is write about current events. So I found an article on the internet, and that's where you're going to go wrong. If you're having students read things and write about them from the internet, then the AI detector scrolls through the internet to get the information it needs to be able to write the essay. So in this particular essay, I'm asking students to do a rhetorical analysis. Okay, and so they are doing a rhetorical analysis on a very specific essay. And so the essay is listed down at the bottom right here. So I took this essay and I went over to my robot again, and I asked for it to write an essay for me. All right, so I told the robot to write a rhetorical analysis and then I listed the authors and the title of the article. And they did a pretty decent job. It would not pass the muster for my class, but there's a side note to that. The essay is not long enough and it's missing some of the key required elements. So when I go back and look at the assignment, the students need to mention, where's my list? There it is. So these 9 things. They don't have to do all 9 of these things, but one of the key things that they do have to do is talk about the rhetorical appeals. So ethos, pathos, and logos. So what I did is I went back to the robot since it didn't do that, and I added to it. So I said, do the authors use any rhetorical appeals? And so then it spit out this. So it talks about ethos, pathos, and logos. And I'm like, holy crap. But what this would take for a student to do is to piece this all together into a well-organized essay. Not all students are going to be able to do that, but many will. And it does give them a really good head start to hitting all of the elements. But what it makes me think is that I need to pick different articles, perhaps articles that are in a database that aren't publicly available on the web. So I'm going to try that and see if I can get the robot to write a rhetorical analysis for an article that's hidden behind like a paywall. But overall, the assignment was not a very good one, so I have to change it because it is definitely not robot proof. So just to sort of refresh your memories, let's go back. The assignments that I've already created that are robot proof are the ones that have students writing about themselves, their personal histories with reading and writing, talking about their own racial identity and implicit biases if they have any. But then when I get them to do some of these more systematic type of essays, like a rhetorical analysis and an argument essay, that's when the robot kicks in and can be very helpful. Now, the argument essay 3, the one that's worth the most points, the way I robot proof that is that it's a research article, but students in 101 aren't really assigned to do a lot of research. So what I do is I provide a very structured outline. I bet the robot doesn't know the outline. And then I provide the research. So if you're going to write this paper, you have to use these articles, and only one other outside source can be used if you can justify having to use it. So it's going to be difficult for them to type in all of this information into the robot area and spit out what it is that I'm looking for. So I'm going to try that later and see what happens. But for the most part, I think it's going to work, especially since one topic, they have 2 topics to choose from. One topic is based off of a series of YouTube videos, a crash course navigating digital information. So I don't know if the robot can sit and watch videos before it writes its essay, but that might be a way to robot proof it. So it just makes me think about my assignments, and now that it's easy for students to plop your writing prompts into the robot machine and spit out something halfway decent, we just have to think about what it is we're asking for students to do and think of ways to make them we're not trying to make them harder for students, we're trying to make them more relevant for students. And writing about things they know about, that's more relevant to a student who has to sit down and write 600-700 words. So if we take a quick look at the list or some tips for how to robot proof your assignments, they say use personalized and creative prompts, which I showed you an example of that. Random questions and answers. I'm not quite sure how that's going to be helpful, but they recommend doing that. So rather than using the same set of questions. And I think what they're trying to get at is because teachers use the same questions over and over again, they end up on the web. And then it's easy for the robot to sort of troll and find those. So if you're just using random questions, it's more difficult for students to just get an answer. Use short answer questions. So questions that require a short answer or explanation can be more difficult for an AI to generate. I didn't realize that, but I guess that's the case. Use open-ended questions. So I love using Packback questions, or it's just called Packback now, because it asks students to write open-ended questions. Instead of you writing a question that students can then just Google and find the response to and paste it into your discussion forum, now you're asking students to answer and to write their own open-ended questions. So that's a good one for 4. And then last, use plagiarism detection software. So they are slowly rolling out. These aren't just the plagiarism detection. Those aren't necessarily catching AI things yet, but there are some AI generated detection tools that are being created. And in fact, PECBAC has it built into their tool already. So these are just some suggestions, but I recommend that you take a look at your assignments and see how well or how robot proof they are. You might have some work to do.